Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. It's been about a week since the last one. Just been a busy week and not that much going on with all of the Champions League and games happening, but I think it'd be time for an update and to discuss the matters at hand. First and foremost, you have today some confirmation from reporting on Ten Hag that we talked about in the last video that he's working in a dual role. And today it's been stated that he doesn't want contact within 2 days of a game, which is exactly what we stated last week in an update and on the video. He's been regularly involved in discussions with the club, meetings, talking about personnel, talking about plans and decisions for the upcoming summer, and simply does not want to engage in it too close to the Ajax games while they're still, for at least 1 or 2 more games, trying to secure the title. Once that ends, he may be even a bit more involved, but as it stands, it should just simply stay as it is. It'll be quiet on his front, not too much talking, not too much reporting, but those meetings and discussions are happening every single week and regularly outside of around the games. He does not want anything happening without his say-so, and he will be involved in all of these discussions. There's been some more, hints over the week of players that are safe, players that are leaving, and we've kind of covered that already, so make sure to watch the prior video if you want that whole list. Regarding Ralf Rangnick, as mentioned, he was never set to have an everyday hands-on role. I can't believe how long I've been saying this, that he was not running the club. He was not set to be a director. He was not set to be, the sporting director or in the running for these roles. He's a consultant, and that's obvious now with him accepting the Austrian national team coaching job, that he's running dual positions. He's just going to consult the club on matters at hand, and he's going to be coaching a football team in the meantime. His job was to come in and evaluate the club, evaluate the personnel, evaluate the players, evaluate the academy, and provide direction to Murtaugh and everyone else involved on the proper steps for modernization and structure, and continue to potentially utilize his contacts in the future to assist in these matters, especially on recruitment where he has a lot of connections. That's it. I don't think it could be more clear on this, but now it's obvious and confirmed entirely that that is the case. What this does do is it leaves the door open for someone to come in, because as of now we've got the scouting department that have lost Marcel Bout and Lawler, the chief scout and head of global scouting. So there's a scouting department without leadership, without 2 very experienced individuals, and something that needs an overhaul, and that's why we talk about Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell, of course, aside from being a sporting director, was a head of scouting at most of the jobs prior. That was what his role was. So this is the area of his expertise, is in scouting and recruitment. So, they're looking for that deputy director of football role. We know that. And there's a number of candidates potentially there. But, that's why, the Paul Mitchell comes up as a potential name. And I'm cautiously optimistic on this one. It was confirmed, I think, by Fabrizio that it's been discussed within the club, been recommended, and there have been some discussions about it. I think there's been a little bit more than that. I believe he's been one of the candidates they've interviewed and that they've gone through looking at. I don't know anything about the other candidates, frankly. I don't know anything about them at all. So that's the only reason I'm kind of wary about it, of going too far forward as of yet. He's been around the club for a long time. He's been recommended by Rangnick. And some of the people I talked to, who are more recent sources, have indicated some good things, while other people I've talked to, some for a long time and some who are very good, just can't get anywhere near it. They're not saying it's not happening. They just have no info. And so, similar to the manager recruitment situation with multiple candidates, I'm wary of seeing only one side of the process and the decision changing or being made differently or something not happening. So if I get something definitively done from an established source where I'm confident in it, then I'll pass that along. But as we said in the last update, and we put in Discord, the last one was that it was believed that he was the preferred choice from the club and that they would push for him, but nothing was done as of yet. So we'll see what happens moving forward. It's been mentioned by a number of people now, and there's obviously something to it, and I'm hoping I can give some good information on that. I think that would really be the last step in finalizing the overall restructure and modernization of the club as a whole. So then, really what we're talking about is recruitment. There's 3 games left. We're heading into summer. Ralph's talking about recruitment in every discussion now, about getting the right players, doing the right things, about getting 2 strikers and things like that. And I put out an article earlier this week that went over how the squad would be expected to take shape next summer. I'm going to run through that outline a little bit just to get everything up to date. Because it's kind of started to narrow down to the plans and what we're looking at in the most likely scenarios. And things are starting to really be lined up for summer. I believe they've been talking to a lot of representatives, that they've been exploring the potential costs of all the different deals and kind of really finalizing that short list. Ten Hag and the club have had their discussions on it. He's given them the names. They've given him he's vetoed and probably crossed off the names he doesn't want. Now it's up to the club to deliver. He asked for certain things, and under this current regime of Murtaugh, Fletcher, Arnold, and Rangnick, and with it being his first summer and all the the pressure around the club, the protests, things like that, I expect he's going to get what was promised to him, and some of that included having key personnel in by preseason. He asked for that, he wanted that, and I think the club have to deliver now. So starting at the top, how does this look? So if we look at the forwards, we have obviously Cavani leaving. There was an update, I think, on Mason Greenwood's case today that they're extending the bail and looking to have the case into June. So, he's not going to be here. I mean, it's just the reality of it. He's not going to be here. I don't want to discuss anything else about it at the moment. There's nothing to discuss. So we don't have Cavani. We don't have number 11. Anthony Martial is for sale. And then you have players Ahmad, Pellistri, and Chong, who are, at the moment, we could assume likely to go back on loan. I heard that Ahmad is already sort of up for loan, and he will get a chance in preseason, but they're already exploring avenues for him to go. Pellistri maybe will get a chance. Chong, I think, just there's not it's very unlikely that he contributes, just based on past experience and ability. Pellistri, we'll see. But given that, what you have is Ronaldo, unless he changes his mind, but Ten Hag would like to keep him. Rashford, Ten Hag would like to keep him as well and get him going next season. He has another season to prove himself. Sancho and Elanga, that's 4 senior options, one being Ronaldo at 37, going on another year, and the one being Elanga, who's still very inexperienced, and the other being Rashford, who's incredibly out of form for this season. So it's very, very thin up there. And the most likely signings for forward you have are, for the first signing would be Nunez or Nkunku. And obviously we've talked about a lot of Nunez stuff. There have been discussions with his representatives. He's very interested in coming to England. There's more news that's come out that, the move for Mendes was specifically to get him a connection with Manchester. And I think that there's some truth to that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first signing and if he's the big kind of major one up top this summer. But Nkunku is still an option, still one to look at. Just doesn't quite fit the same profile as Ronaldo. So when you're making those substitutions and you want a cohesiveness, Nunez makes a little more sense, and for that reason, that's why I think he's in the lead. Potential second signings would be players like Antony or Rafinha, and then you have potential youth in Shortire and Garnacho. Garnacho getting his debut against Chelsea, which is good to see. And, they'll get a little bit of experience, especially if we're in Europa and some of these other competitions. But, yeah, right now we have 4 options and one who definitely cannot play every game. So you're looking at likely adding 2. You need a striker no matter what. And, Darwin Nunez or Nkunku can both cover the wings. But if neither Ahmad or Pellistri or Chong can get into the side and be here next year, someone from the youth is going to have to step up to give us a 6th option unless a second signing is made. So if you see sales, then you might see a second signing. But to start, Nunez or Nkunku seems obvious. And then based on the youth, based on preseason, and based on sales, you could see an Antony or Rafinha come in, someone like that. In the midfield, you have Matic, Lingard, Mata, and Pogba all leaving. Andreas Pereira for sale. Garner and Van de Beek set for preseason evaluation, and outside of that, you only have Bruno, Fred, and McTominay. You have 3 players. limited options here. This is where you're more likely to see 2 signings here than anywhere else, even without significant sales. But it could very much depend on what is evaluated with Garner and Van de Beek. Depending on the evaluation of these players, you could be down in 2 positions to having very little depth. The first signing is, I think, likely to be Calvin Phillips here. You need a 6. Declan Rice, Tchouaméni, Phillips are the 3 main names there. The club are still obviously very interested in Rice, even though they've feeling like they're giving up on it, and it's obviously been really strongly put out there from West Ham now that come back next year. And then with Tchouaméni, the problem is getting him. The club haven't given up. He is the preferred choice there for Ten Hag, but it just seems unlikely. And in that case, they're going to need to move quickly to bring in Phillips before he signs a new deal, or before Leeds just say, no, you're not going to come in for him in August and throw the team out of balance. You can have a situation like Camavinga waiting for him, and then he chooses somewhere else with the Tchouaméni situation. So it is important, and it's been expressed to me as well, it's important that they be decisive here and not wait. The longer they wait, the worse it gets for a chance at a player like Calvin Phillips, and then you're down to not really having many options. Obviously, there are other options beyond that, but from what I understand, not ones that are really highly rated. And players like Ruben Neves are not viewed as the right fit and are not being pursued right now. Here's where you could have a second signing, and depending on Garner, depending on Van de Beek, on how that goes and how they fit, you could end up with a player like Haidara or Conrad Lamer who can definitely cover the 6 and the 8. Or you could consider Christopher Nkunku again as an attacking mid/forward who can, and that's what I'm interested in, that I would really like, because if you sign Darwin Nunez and you sign Calvin Phillips, Nkunku could cover the wings, he can cover extra striker depth, he can cover in the midfield. There's a lot he could do there and be flexible. So I think ideally in the best circumstances, you could get both of them, Nunez and Nkunku, to really bring in some young attacking and flexible talent there. But again, the most likely first signing is going to be Phillips in the midfield, and and then you could see a second one there, and then you have Hannibal for potential youth depth as well coming in the attacking area. So I expect one signing before preseason really gets going. They're going to have to be, again, decisive on this and not wait. If you see Garner going back on loan, I think that would be your indication for someone like Haidara or Conrad Lamer or someone like that. They've been suggested. They're affordable. Sabitzer was a name mentioned to me. So those would be ones I would keep an eye on in that case. If you see something about Van de Beek being sold, then you might be looking at Nkunku or someone like that as a potential option. In the back line, there's no free agents leaving, but you have Bailly, Jones, Wan-Bissaka, Telles, and Tuanzebe all for sale. You have players like Dalot, Mengi, Williams, and Lindelof that will be evaluated in preseason. Varane, Shaw, and Maguire are safe for now, not all for the same reasons, but they are. And this one's very tricky. Wholesale changes might be needed, but are probably not quite as urgent as the midfield and striker. You can see no matter what pairing we use at the back, without the midfield coverage, it really doesn't matter. They have to work so hard, and it's practically impossible. I think the fullback is almost more important. So in that basis, the first signing is likely Jurrien Timber. This one that Ten Hag asked for, obviously works with at Ajax. He can be covered for the right back and for center back, and he can do a lot of things. And I think that talks for him have started initially, but it will accelerate once Ajax have finished their season as well. I think they don't want interruptions, and I think Ten Hag has probably asked for no distractions. Given that, a lot of it you could see a lot of changes here, and you could see youth making up the depth. You could see Williams being the depth at left back. I mean, I think he's better than Alex Telles right now. You could see Timber and Dalot being the right backs. And you could see, Varane, Maguire, Lindelof, and Timber, maybe Mengi being center backs. If they were able to make some sales, if they didn't buy a second midfielder, if they didn't buy a second attacker, then Pau Torres, especially if someone like Lindelof were to go, then Pau Torres would be one to definitely keep an eye on. Very well admired, very highly admired and looked at. But keep an eye on it. I don't think it's totally nailed down here. I think this one will be addressed further in 2023. But this is in for a lot of changes, and it could be very much based on sales. Here, what happens. This one has a lot of influxes, maybe a little less decisive, especially for the second signing. If you can get someone like Timber in cheaper, then gives you a lot of flexibility on what you want to do. And then lastly, the goalkeeper. Keeping this brief, David De Gea is safe. I think the news has kind of come out this week. He's pretty well safe. May even get a new extended short-term contract. Dean Henderson wants first-team football, and for other reasons, it's possible he's loaned or sold. A backup keeper will likely be signed if Dean goes, and then the keeper situation again resolved alongside the back line in 2023. Could it change dramatically in preseason? Maybe. If they get down to it and it's like, oh my God, this isn't going to work, then maybe it changes things. But that's what I expect. Going into next year, I would say your starting 11 is going to be something like Rashford, Ronaldo or Nunez, Sancho, Bruno, Fred, Calvin Phillips, Luke Shaw, Varane, Maguire, Timber, and David De Gea. It's not wholesale changes. It is improved. It is a lot more balanced. You'd have depth, like players like Dalot and Williams as depth, Van de Beek, Garner as depth, McTominay becomes a depth player, Ronaldo and Nunez can rotate, Elanga doesn't become a day in and day out starter. I think that these are the potential things that can happen this year. That's the basics. That's what should happen at the minimum of the 11 with some sales. As mentioned, maybe you see another midfielder instead of Fred, or in rotation, or you see another forward instead of one of the forwards. So a lot could still change in addition to that, but I think that's sort of the jump-off point for this summer and where plans are going. And it leaves a clear picture for the future. You need to handle a goalkeeper, a center back, a right winger, and perhaps another midfielder. And with sales, you might see some of those getting addressed this summer and the rest pushed into January and the following. But that center back / right back, defensive midfielder, and striker you would expect to be covered this summer for sure, with the rest based on sales. So things will really kick off over the next few weeks. I believe everything's being lined up, and I think they'll really start to close the deals as soon as the league position is secured. We know when we have Europa, things like that, which is probably what's going to happen. And as soon as you have things like Ajax's season finished, and some of the other targets' seasons finished. So a little more patience before things get really busy, but I do think by mid-May, a lot more will be happening based on how it's going. Okay? Thanks for watching today. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn the notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video.